Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is James Jimmy Hills. I'm the host of Java with Jimmy and also the digital director here with Dee Dee's Cry. And we are here this morning in about our oh God, seventh, sixth, seventh. I don't know, Jesus. We're in a few weeks in with Miss Crystal and also Toy here, talking about tips and tricks to help you socially and emotionally support your child. And so, as we do every Saturday morning, we're going to turn it over to our founder and CEO, Toy Burton, to talk to us about Dee Dee's Cry and why it's important that we're here today talking about tips and tricks to support our children emotionally and socially.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Toy Burton, and I am the founder and executive director of Dee Dee's Cry Suicide Prevention and Family Support. Dee Dee's Cry is named after my sister, Danita Shane Morris, who died by suicide when she was 23 years old in 1986. I started Dee Dee's Cry in 2017 after I noticed that organizations that focus on suicide prevention didn't have their outreach in communities of color. So Dee Dee's Cry is to make sure that mental health education and suicide prevention is accessible to communities of color. We are based in Roxbury, Boston, Massachusetts, but we are here for everyone. Like James says, this is to teach parents how to support their child's social and emotional growth and development. And we have Miss Crystal, who is our facilitator and our host. And take it away, Miss Crystal.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Back with another week.
Back with
Whew.
another week.
Another week of some tips and tricks, as Jimmy likes to put it. Today's conversation is going to be about drugs and children.
And can we just, was it guided kind of some of the events in the last 24 hours that
Absolutely
name and acknowledge the transition of Mr. Earl Simmons, who in his artistic name was DMX. And I think, Crystal, for our generation, and we might be in two separate wonderful woman. But in our generation, some of the lyrics and things are very significant. And I think for us in the spaces that we move in, the lyrics hit differently yesterday. So thank you for being in tune, because I think that, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I had a whole nother topic in mind, and it kind of, that situation just changed my whole course of thinking. And sad that he's gone, sad that he went through what he went through that created that path of drug addiction for him. However, he was a successful icon. His lyrics were amazing. A lot of people looked up to him, but his story is a story to be told and a story to learn from, which connects to our conversations every week, which is watching our children, having conversations about our children, because it happened to him at the age of 14. So yeah, we're gonna talk about drug addiction.
Yep.
And having the conversation with our children, particularly our teens. However, I'm anticipating to encourage you to start this conversation as early as 8. So the conversation about drugs, it starts early. You can go on. So the top 3 influences is social media, seeing that DMX is a social icon, peer and family influence, and to feel good or feel better, the 3 main reasons why our children and adults typically turn to drugs. Social media advertises drugs like it's a fashion statement. Every time you turn around, the new and upcoming artists are talking about weed, popping Molly, popping ecstasy. They even have a whole fashion line that says it's a pill bottle, it's a pocketbook, it's a statement. It's like popping pills is something that you're supposed to do. It's a good thing. They're doing it at parties, they're doing it at school, little do you know. So social media plays a major role in normalizing drugs. Before, you would have the Tupacs and the DMXs telling you to stay away from it and really creating lyrics about the traumatic stories behind it. And today's social media is encouraging it, showing you putting the pill on the girl's tongue in the video and, making it like it's just this glorious thing and it makes you feel so amazing. So social media, television, our children are all into the electronics, and social media is pushing drugs on our children like no tomorrow.
Absolutely. Can we just say for a minute, Miss Crystal, that we've been talking for a few weeks about the fact of talking to your children, creating an atmosphere and environment where you are connecting with them, because this influence to which you refer is huge. And if you don't have an idea, you're not, let's just keep it 100. If you're not trolling their social media, you may not know what they're consuming, and it does have influence. I might be just a little more interactive today because this it just it hits it hits.
It does hit. And even if you don't know what they're seeing, you know what's being put out there because it's in what we're watching. It's in our movies, it's in our shows, it's in our um episodes and series and things that we like to watch. So at the end of the day, you know that it's out there. So either you're going to be proactive and educate and initiate the conversation because it's happening. Drug influence is happening. Peer and family influence. Now, how many of us have mothers, grandparents, aunts and uncles who grew up in the 80s? And they're all majority. Let me not say all. Majority of them are on crack cocaine. They're on drugs because that was the thing. Like weed is the thing now, outside of all the pills and Molly and method and all of that. But back then, crack was the thing, and it was an okay thing.
And that's the thing that I was saying to someone. And again, we're talking about a generational thing, but we don't know. And there was a time where like taking the jum, as they called it or whatever, and sprinkling it across the blunt, we don't want to be too graphic here, but we have real conversations in DD's
Absolutely.
And this is important to really pay attention to, because our generation was impacted without knowing it, and it spills down. So that's why, and it also contributes to parenting. Miss Crystal, today's going to be interesting.
Oh, we're not even going to get into how it even got into our neighborhoods. Okay.
That's a DD Scribe, Java with Jimmy, and social justice collabo.
Absolutely.
Time. You can feel free more to come, but let's
we're not going to get to how it even got in the neighborhoods, but our people took the bait. They took the bait, and it messed up that whole generation, and then it just trickled on down generation after generation. So if you're a child who's living in a household and your mom is doing it or has done it or is in the process of trying to kick the habit, or an aunt or an uncle, that's another way of it being normalized if it's in your personal environment. You have your peers at school who may be a year older than you, or maybe their household is like that. Your household isn't like that, but they're talking to you about it, piquing your curiosity. Your friends go together. Birds of a feather flock together. And that's a real statement. So if your child's hanging around other friends that are doing it, yeah, they're going to get the influence. The other thing is to feel good or feel better. If a child's stressed, overwhelmed, got a lot going on, they may do it to feel good or feel better. We'll get into more details. But yeah, those are the top 3 influences: social media, peer and family influence, and just to feel good or feel better about their current situation.
Can I also name that as parents, we want to be careful about how we present that evening glass of wine or that evening beer based on what you said, to feel good or feel better. There's normalcy, but for me in my household, glass of wine at the end of the day is a normal sort of accepted sort of practice. And if there were children here, I'd have to be more cognizant of presenting the fact that that's my wind down. That's how I feel better. And I mean, truth of the matter is, that glass of wine is going to relax you a little bit. Let's keep it 100. But then we need to be cognizant of how
because you're normalizing it
based on the point of Miss Crystal. This is going to be one of our. We've had some good sessions, but this one, yeah.
So, how to begin the conversation? I mean, like I said, start the conversation as early as 8, because we done seen the movies. I've seen it live and in the flesh of an 8-year-old smoking weed. hanging with his older 16, 17-year-old brother. You get what I'm saying? You're not even the peers or the environment or the neighborhood kids, which we'll get into, but your older siblings. You know, take your brother with you. Take your sister with you. And now I'm stuck with my little sibling, but I'm trying to go out and hang with my friends. So I'm going to do what I'm doing. He's just going to sit there and be quiet. Now he's watching that. Now he's seeing that. And let's just hope your children aren't encouraging it as well. You know, so then before you know it, you got a more advanced 8-year-old or an 8-year-old that's exposed more than what they should be. And now that curiosity is there. So yeah, have that conversation earlier. What happens when you focus in school? Talk to them about all the beautiful things and the type of careers and all the benefits that come out of focusing on school, because that's the gateway. That's always been the gateway. That's what our people have been focusing on for decades just to achieve, is getting through school, getting an education that keeps your mind off of everything else when you focus on what's important in that school.
Yes, ma'am.
What happens when you don't get an education? Now, as the next point, you know, the struggles of being successful without an education go, you know, it goes hand in hand. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people who became superstars, millionaires, billionaires, CEOs, and things like that without an education. But there's backstories to that. Either someone hooked you up, or, you know, you just so happen to be at the right place at the right time. But the traditional story is, without an education, you're going to have a struggle. Like my grandmother used to always tell me, you're going to be flipping burgers. And not that there's anything wrong with people who work at McDonald's. However, that's how my generation was encouraged to get an education. One, be mindful of where we came from and the importance of an education. And two, if you have the ability to get an education, because not everybody does, depending on what country you come from and your circumstances. But if you have the ability to get an education and that opportunity is on the table for you and you don't take it, these are your options. But these are your options by choice. Not because you didn't have it, but because you chose not to focus on the opportunity at hand. So these are your options. Chances of getting out of that and being successful are very slim.
Keep it real, Miss Crystal.
Right? So start the conversation early. Give them the pros and the cons of getting it, having an education and not having an education. Ask them what they know about drugs and their thoughts about drugs. Are they good? Are they bad? Remember, the way some, especially if you're starting a conversation as early as 8, you don't know how they may view it. You might turn around and he go, drugs is good, because of what he's seeing on social media. He might sing a lyric for you, popping mollies, twerking this, twerking that. That's register in his mind that this is a good thing.
Well, wait, Miss Crystal, I know we've been promoting the young people speaking their mind and whatnot, but Lord help me, Jesus, if that came out of one of the mouths, Jesus. Whew,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Have you not heard Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and their lyrics?
Yeah.
You don't even have a filter anymore with this generation. They are talking about the insides and the outsides and what comes out of it. Yes. So, like, at least before we was a little bit more discreet. The
there
children had to put two and two together.
Ooh, and so we're going to have to, you talked about, we already did well, we didn't do the talk, but we might have to have a specific Dee Dee's Cry tips and tricks after dark, and then do one on media consumption for our children.
I like that. Tips and tricks after dark. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Make sure y'all turn the music up at night and stop exposing the children to what y'all doing. Okay, let's stay focused. Yes, ma'am.
You know, so yeah, so ask them. You never know as early as 8 what response you may get, because you haven't had the conversation. So you don't know how their mind has formulated with all of these different influences. Include vaping. Vaping, depending on what they're putting in it. But vaping appears to just be some form of nicotine, but it's still a drug, and, you know, at least in my book. So they may not see vaping as a bad thing, but vaping has a horrible impact on your body just as drugs do. And if you're a parent who is vaping to get off cigarettes,
They see that, and it's
they see that.
it's normalized.
It looks the same as the other types of vaping that have not so good things in them. So you may be vaping for a good purpose of transitioning from being a decade-long cigarette smoker, but not realizing, like that glass of wine you mentioned, it's normalizing what you do when you want to feel good in your downtime, in your go ahead.
I'm trying to hold because we have to, this is a transparent space. Let's keep it 100. The parents have a right stress, within the boundaries that they set for themselves around limitations between addiction and alcohol or whatever. So there's that balance of doing you as a parent, but you have a responsibility. And I think that that's one of the reasons why this space is so important, because people may not, we grew up with the Heineken, like private stock, the Heineken, the beers and whatnot, like just seeing it as open.
Just on the table, stacked up in the boxes, empty.
You make me feel like I'm back in one of my old DSS trainings, because you sit there for your clients and then you're sitting back like, wait. So now I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. I grew up seeing that stuff. And so this is good. This is good.
Different people, different effects. You got some people, and that could be another topic of conversation. Some people who are not affected by it and still stay on the straight and narrow. And then you have some people who get consumed by it. The environment can either help or hurt. And sometimes it all depends on the person. So yes, please include vaping. Vaping and weed seem to kind of be at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to pills and crack and heroin and all that, but they're still just as important because they're gateway. They'll start with that, and that will open the door to a whole bunch of other things. If you'll try one, there's a good chance, let me hint that, good chance, not required, not necessarily guaranteed, but it's a good chance it will lead to something else. Discuss why people do drugs, right? People do drugs because of stress, depression, lack of support, aka lack of conversation, as I keep stressing, peer pressure, medical problems, social media influence, and the list can go on and on and on and on. But again, like I said, medical problems is another important thing, because mom or dad or auntie or uncle could have very well been perfectly fine, had an accident, had a surgery, was given drugs, and was given medication to help with those drugs. And now that then manifested into a whole nother situation. And now that person is addicted, and the child's seen that transition happen.
Let's just say the word oxy and the disproportionate impact on communities of color of that prescribing to. So, yep.
Yeah, be mindful be mindful what the doctors are giving you in the consumption, and be mindful if your children go through it, their consumption. Me personally, I try to stay away from any type of pills or medication unless necessary. Now, that's not necessarily pills to help you be healthy and heart and things like that. But when it comes to medication for pain, I try to limit that and stay narcotics. There you go. I try to stay away from that.
What is it? Class 3, something narcotics that we know the ones that, somebody, they find out you got them, talk about, can you give me one for the, so we know 100.
Yeah. The same pills the doctor's giving you is the same pills they're selling on the street. So yeah. And be mindful of the doses they're prescribing you and how much you're taking. So yeah, with that being said, have those conversations with your children. Discuss why people do drugs. If you're smoking cigarettes, yeah, you might want to have that conversation as to how you got on it, why you're trying to stop smoking, why you're vaping because it helps you transition, why you drink a glass of wine. Make sure it's only one, or try not to drink it around them, period. So you don't necessarily have to have that, well, mommy does it or daddy does it, because you don't want those conversations in this realm, and that in this era or genre of conversation. You don't want to have to say mommy and daddy does because, so talk to them.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning in or watching later, we're just giving some context to the fact of the transition of Earl Simmons, known as an artist in DMX, and from Miss Crystal and Miss Toy's generation as well. We shifted into a conversation about talking to your children about drugs and addiction today. So if you're wondering why we're a little different language and keeping it very real, these are conversations we need to have that will help us better able emotionally and socially support, especially socially support our children.
Yes. So I know sometimes, because of the age difference and what children watch, what they watch and what teenagers watch is not necessarily the adult's cup of tea, right? You might watch cartoons and ABCs with your baby because they're young, but at a certain age, they start to go in their room and they start to watch their own things and, create their own identity of what type of movies they like and things like that. I think it's important when you're trying to have this conversation to maybe tie those movies in, right? Movies that show teens getting addicted to drugs or doing drugs or, walking down the hallway and pulling it out of their locker, because that's meeting them where they're at, and you can change the narrative of the conversation. So instead of this being a movie that's influencing my child to do drugs and how to slip it in your bag and how to get it through, at home and when to do it and things like that, change the narrative of that conversation. You see what happens when she started doing drugs? You see how she's skipping school? You see how her parents don't know. Now she ended up at a party and look what happened. Now she done overdosed and no one's there. She didn't tell her parents. I just had this conversation with my daughter. Literally just had this conversation with my daughter in terms of teenagers are going to be teenagers. I'll keep it general. And she's only 14, but like I said, I'm not spitting to you to have the conversation and I'm not doing it myself. I have a preteen, okay? So I'm having the conversations and it was basically like, yeah, you're a teenager. You're going to be tempted to go against the grain. It's natural. You're going to want to lie to me. You're going to want to do something that I said don't do. And let me give you some real tips and tricks from mommy. When you go to that party and you hear those stories about the girlfriends done slipped something in a drink or the young girl who got chopped up in the freezer down south, you have to be mindful of who you're with and what you do. And you may be tempted to lie, but your parents should always know where you are. They should always know who you're with. And even if you go and you get yourself in a situation, you send that text. You make that phone call. I don't care if you call auntie, uncle, or cousin. You let somebody know where you're at. And if you get yourself in a situation that you shouldn't be in and that I might get mad at, I'd rather make sure you're safe and eliminate that whole conversation about you should have and how come. And we're not going to go that route. I want to make sure you're safe beyond anything. So you don't hesitate to call me. Let me know where you're at. Let me know what you're doing, because things can go left real quick when they start hanging out with their friends and going to parties and drugs and alcohol is involved.
Miss Crystal, no, sorry. You're good. And it goes back to the vein of everything that you've been saying for the past few weeks. Communication is key. We've talked about communication with, resources and providers and educators and whatnot. But the number one communication that parents need to have is with their children, because you get a sense of, you would least likely wind up with the situation to which you referred. If you have an idea who they're hanging around, what your plans this weekend, you kind of got a proactive purview into you may not want to think about. Last thing I'll say is this other piece, Miss Crystal, or question with that movie is, after you go through those tips and tricks you named, maybe asking them, so where do you think this woman's going to be in 5 to 7 years? Like, let them use their imagination and they'll come up with it. These young people are smart. They'll come up with the scenario more than likely based on what they just saw in the movie.
So have them, instead of looking at it and looking at these people as idols, look at them as lessons learned, something to learn from, what not to do. And yeah, occasionally, if not more often than none, sit down with your children and change the narrative of what this social media and movies is pushing into our children. The second tip, take a drive down to Boston Medical Center if you live in the Boston area, as also known as Methadone Mile, that has hundreds and hundreds of people who have been addicted to pills, drugs, pain meds, you name it, it's down there at Boston Medical on Mass Ave, right there by the McDonald's. That whole entire area, you go down there 8 o'clock at night, your heart will be broken with what you see on that strip and those people and the amount of people that are out there. And it just makes you wonder what is going on. What is like, it's a pandemic.
It is. And Miss Toy and I was down there a lot more often covering it. But one night, Miss Toy and I were down there. I'm going to bring it in real quick to just mention we went to Methadone Mile and we saw what was, going on there. So that visual piece, Miss Toy, if you agree, maybe, age may vary when you expose them to that.
Of course.
There you go. But Toy, definitely, if you wanted to speak to that, to what we saw down there.
Well, I could speak to it personally. So I love this conversation. Someone being that I was on drugs and I was an alcoholic and I was out there and I was introduced to alcohol when I was in college on a trip to Montreal. And the kids were like, we're on the bus driving to Canada. And someone was like, hey, try this. Oh, it's vodka and McDonald's drink. And from there, I was just off. I was just drinking after that. And even with crack, a friend of the family, oh, here, try this. So you have to know, like Miss Crystal said, who your child is associated with, where they're at, and go through the different scenarios. Like, what would you do if a child, one of your friends say, here, hold this joint for me to after school? What are you going to do? Have those conversations with your child. So by the grace of God, I've been clean for over 22 years. But like I said, I can tell you personally, like, have those conversations. Save them a lifetime of heartache,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Toy. I had to pull you in there. Thank you for coming back in.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's trust me when I tell you, majority of families got a cousin, got an aunt, got a mama, got a daddy. You've experienced it. Now, granted, depending on the child's age, you intentionally going down to Methadone Mile, you might want to tailor that to the child's age, yes, because it can be traumatic. However, we all drive by it. So you might drive by real quick and you can still let your 10-year-old know, yeah, these people got on drugs and this is where they live. Yeah, and keep it simple, keep it basic. You don't got to go into full detail at that point in time in that age, because you do want to tailor it to their age, but it can always be tailored.
Absolutely.
So yes, allow them to understand that these are regular people with families and struggles. Allow them to connect. Let them know that that's someone's daughter. That's someone's mother. She may have children at home. She may have sisters, brothers. She could be a child herself with a mommy and a daddy at home. So connect that humanize it. These are humans. They're people too. They have families, they have loved ones. Someone loves them and they took the wrong path. And once you go down it, it's hard to come back. So, try to make that connection. Keep your child engaged in extracurricular activities. Idle minds and idle hands can lead to a problem. Keep them busy. You got your child leaving school and they're not in no extracurricular activities. They got out at 1:30, but they just get to hang around the block for the next 4.5 hours. No.
But again, if you have that rapport and relationship and communication, you know what's going on. And also you kind of don't want to leave that. We said it differently growing up. Idle mind is the devil's workshop. What I mean, yeah. You want to be cognizant, especially when they're teens, when they're feeling their independence. 8, 9, they're going home after school. But when they get to a point where they can take the bus and, feeling their independence.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, 9 and 10, they envy those 14 and 15-year-olds. Your 14 and 15-year-old envy those 16 and 17-year-olds. So, they look up to those people. And, if your child got all that extra time on their hands after school, granted, you could be at work. I understand. But I'm just trying to bring it to your attention. Is your son or daughter just hanging on the block, hanging in front of the corner store, or hanging at the park. My kid, me specifically, my kid cannot go to a park with a basketball court. Now that might sound strange, but basketball courts is where
recruitment
happens.
Violence. Yep.
Recruitment, drive-by shootings. Older people are at the basketball court. So now my child is at a playground, but the basketball court adds another level of people, another age bracket of people that can be there in different scenarios. So we're very particular on the parks that she's allowed to go to and be at, because yes, shoot ups, drive-bys, too many men, too many. So yes, you have to be mindful of the whole entire situation. And go ahead.
Let's also name, since we got these children, these wonderful phones, get your happy self, make sure that you always have the password and put the
Absolutely.
GPS on. Let's keep it one. Listen, Lord help.
I don't have that video call real quick. Where are you?
FaceTime me right now.
Let me see your environment.
Take your phone and
do a quick scan around real quick and make sure you are where you said you are. Go. I remember when I had to sit on the doorstep till my mama got home. There was no hanging out over here. You better talk to the neighbor next door.
And let's take a tech trick. If your child FaceTimes you and the image is with their face all up here, they're trying to hide where they are. If it's huge face only, they're trying to hide. So that's just a little extra tip and trick for you this morning.
Just saying, utilize it. You can't beat it. Join it and use it. Use it to your advantage.
Shoot. Okay. Sorry. This is good. Miss Chris. I say that every week.
On to the next one.
Okay.
Schedule a time for a doctor to have a conversation about drugs and the damage it does to your body. I can't help but keep bringing it back because I'm living this current situation right now. My daughter is 14 and we now go to the doctors and they kick me out the room. I now have to give her privacy in the doctor's office to have that one-on-one personal conversation. I can also use that opportunity to tell that doctor that when you have this conversation with my child, instead of trying to get all in my business, I need you to do this. Have a conversation about drugs and, see where their mind is at. Now, granted, you're not going to tell me the information because clearly this is a privacy situation, but I'm asking you as the doctor who wants to now take me out of the conversation to make sure you're having this conversation as I'm doing it at home. Or ask your doctor, period, a doctor that they may have for whatever reason. Set up a Zoom call, have a conversation, have the doctor talk about drugs and the damages that it does to your brain and your body and how many children come in, or watch a documentary. Like social media, use it to your advantage if you don't have the ability to get a doctor, right?
This is a good time right now, Miss Crystal. And I would say specifically with young men, but some of these younger ones, dads and whatnot, they're watching their dads kind of go through this. Why is he playing that music so loud? And why is he, here's an opportunity in a time sensitive period for a lot of Black men to really begin maybe to have this conversation. Maybe not the doctor, but if you're so inclined and have some young men in your life, this may be an opportune time with the passing of Earl Simmons, aka DMX.
Oh, yes, that's a serious conversation. That's one of the social medias to use to your advantage. Yes. They got all types of clips and videos out here of him crying and talking about how he was given a blunt, weed, at 14 years old, and a 30-year-old man put crack cocaine or whatever it was in his blunt. At 14, your brain is still developing at 14. That's a horrible time. You think it's easy. I think my hubby was like, oh, well, he's 50 now. So, why couldn't he kick the habit? It started at 14. You didn't start it as an adult. You started it as a kid. And I just think that I'm not a doctor, but I just think that's a whole nother level of addiction as a kid.
Absolutely. You're still in the last stage of frontal lobe development. So
absolutely.
And with an addiction such as crack, we can't go too deep, but it is. Here goes the other point to bring it back to social and emotional learning. Here, know who your children are around.
Absolutely.
Know who be in. There's this balance between helicopter parent and not, but I'd rather be accused of being a helicopter parent and being on you than be so free and trying to be your friend. And here you
Absolutely.
are, you addicted to crack.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Got some some of those kids or those parents who's like, she was never allowed to go outside. She couldn't never do this. She couldn't never do that. Not encouraging that because, like I said, have a conversation. You got to give, you got to take, you got to meet in the middle because they are kids and they have feelings. But those children that you've seen that weren't able to go and play and do those extra things and have idle hands and idle minds, look where they are now.
Most
Very
of them.
successful. They stay focused, right?
That's just the other side. If you put it on them too much, once they get that little inch of freedom, there's that other side too. Then they take it a mile because they
there
never
you go. So you gotta have that balance.
Yeah.
You gotta have the balance. Express to them the different things that they can do if they do feel stressed, pressured, influenced, overwhelmed, or curious.
Yeah. Yep. And curiosity is real.
Curiosity is real. How many more times I gotta hear from Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion how it make them feel and what they do to make me go, I remember when I was just before I had my daughter, I was working and had some friends working with me and they wanted to come in and talk about how their weekend was and what they did and how many they popped and how it made. I was like, hey, do me a favor. Keep your crackish conversations to yourself.
Did you say crack it?
I did. Because even as an adult, curiosity can still be there. I don't want to be curious or even spark that curiosity into how good it made you feel and what a good time you had that weekend. And, I could be over here stressed out with my life. And no, you popping pills like Skittles. No, thank you. I don't want to know that.
I ain't messing with you.
So yeah, talk to them, let them know that they can come to you and you can help them lessen the stressful things on their load. Maybe school is stressful. Maybe trying to fit in with their friends is stressful. All those conversations we're telling you to have about your children are stressful conversations. These are young people in a big world in big schools with big influences on them. And if you're not having the conversation, it's all stayed inside them and they're trying to deal with it all by themselves. And they're too little and too young to have to do that. Tell them to talk to a guidance counselor, right? Go to someone you do trust if they don't trust the parents because you don't know what the repercussion might be. Stay away from people who do drugs. If you keep having the conversations with them, then they will hear that and see those people and want to stay clear because they will look at it as, that ain't cool. But you got to let them know that it's not cool so that they know that it's not cool. Right. Otherwise, they're just going to hang with who they want to hang with, and what is what is. I'm going. Final thoughts. Like we've been saying, and it all comes to conclusion. Watch who your children are playing with in the neighborhood. And I'm specifically talking to those kids whose parents say, go out and play. And the child went out and played after school. And you're home. You could be either at work and it's idle hands, idle minds because you're at work and they don't want to be in the house. Or you're at home and it's like, hey, mommy, I want to go play. And you're like, go ahead. And they're just out in the neighborhood. Don't know who they talking to. You don't know who's talking to them. Be mindful of who they're playing with in the neighborhood. Make sure your children are around children their age. DMX was influenced at 14 by a 30-year-old man. Why was he with a 30-year-old man? Now, granted, there's also clips and things out there about the abuse that his mother did and neglectful situations around that. So clearly, nobody was having the conversation. Nobody was monitoring him. Nobody was making sure that what he was doing and where he was at was safe and productive places. And this is how somebody was able to slip on in, give him something, encourage his young mind, and clearly he didn't have the skills to combat that influence.
And as a parent, I was one that as a senior, as a freshman, somehow I wound up hanging with the seniors. And then as a senior, I didn't want to be bothered with them. So then I was hanging with the freshmen. So that little bit of age difference, some of that stuff may happen. But if you got a 35-year-old, 30-year-old that is not a mentor, not through a program, but from the hood, and all of a sudden y'all know, parents, that gut you said before, I think in one of our first few sessions, trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
If there's a 16-year age difference, and they're
either trying to recruit or trying to influence. And either way, it's not good, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I do just want to add a little tidbit in there, even when you got that 15-year-old dating a 17-year-old. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds so simple, and it's only a 2-year difference. But that 17-year-old could be a lot more experienced than your little 15-year-old. So yes, the age difference matters. Having 14 and 16, that's a big difference between the way a 16-year-old carries themselves and the things that they're trying to do and be about versus a 14-year-old. So just because it's only a 2-year difference, that's a big difference in the way they're thinking and developing and what they're exposed to. So 14-year-olds need to stay with 14-year-olds. 15-year-olds need to stay with 14, 15-year-olds. Not 16, 17. I'd rather stay in the bracket or a year younger, not 2 years older. Just add that out there. Have the conversation repeatedly. Change the conversation as they get older. Keep it simple. Add a little bit more. Add a little bit more. I say have this conversation every 6 months.
Water.
So yes, those are my final thoughts. Please, please, please. I think the common denominator of all the conversations I'm having is having the conversation with your children.
And it boils down to communication as we get ready to wrap up. Everything that we've covered, Miss Crystal and Toy, has come down to communication. You know what I mean? And it's just being proactive, being in your children's lives, being invested. And this isn't a opinion of Dee Dee's Cry or Miss Crystal, but whatever you did for them to get here, they didn't ask. So you have the responsibility to ensure that they are reared to become positive, productive citizens to our society. And I'll leave that right.
Well, you have to feel comfortable that you did your best.
Yes. Yep. So often here we say tricks and tips, but we are teaching you to provide your child with the skills to help them through life. Because like Ms. Crystal says, if you're not teaching them, the world will.
Yep.
So we want to teach our babies like how to cope with things and how to deal with things
before it gets to their lap or gets to their feet.
Yes,
absolutely. And Betsy, we just want to acknowledge you. That's what we do here in the Dee Dee's Cry space. Toy, would you like to let folks know how they can contact Dee Dee's Cry, and we'll show some of the team and just some information how they can make donations or reach out to collaborate.
Yes, and thank you so much to the team. If you would like to support Dee Dee's Cry, you could go to our website, Dee Dee's Cry, DeeDeesCry.com. You can follow us on Instagram. Definitely hit that donate button, give to Dee Dee's Cry, support Black mental health, support our programming. One of the ways that we make our mental health and suicide prevention accessible is that all this is free. It doesn't cost anyone any money to click on the play button. So please support us, follow us on Instagram, like the Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Did I forget anything, James?
You did not forget anything. You covered donations. Also, just one other thing, if you like these conversations and may want to curate, reach out to Toy and hire Dee Dee's Cry to come in. Community people talk to Toy, but if you're an entity that's watching and want folks to come in and work with your organization around Black mental health, around tips and tricks, maybe for parents' lunchtime virtually, contact Dee Dee's Cry, because we have folks here like Miss Crystal and myself that will help you set it up digitally and also help you with content. But contact Toy to find out how you can support something like that, yes, especially if you're an entity. So yes, I think that's it for us today. That's it, right? We don't have anything coming up outside of, there's some other stuff that Toy works with, the Sarah Ann Shaw Roxbury Unity Parade event taking place on April 25th. Yes. Toy is also working on something for teens and mental health. She didn't tell me the date, but sometime in May that's coming.
In May, yes. And we have the Dee Dee's Cry support group. We meet twice a week. We meet virtually on Thursdays at 6 p.m. and in person Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. from 9 to 10.
Okay. So definitely hit up Dee Dee's Cry. You see the website address there. Toy, Miss Crystal, and myself will be back with you next Wednesday, the 11th. I'm not exactly sure. And Crystal, you might, the Saturday ending April vacation, Toy?
Yes, we'll have that Saturday off.
we'll have that Saturday off. And
April
so, Crystal,
vacation
what's that?
week.
What's that date? I know you know. You're in
The
the education
24th.
space. Oh, the 24th of April. There will
Yes.
not be a Dee Dee's Cry tips and tricks session for social emotional learning, but or what we'll do, Miss Toy, I'll commit to putting up one of the other videos that folks can rewatch. We'll do that. So if they're used to coming to the space, and so we'll do that. It'll be a repeat on the 24th. We won't be live.
Okay. Awesome.
Maybe this one.
I was thinking that. So maybe this one, because that's a couple of weeks out. And I think that, and there's other conversations happening. So Miss Crystal, I'm going to reach out to you to see what your availability is next week.
I'm waiting.
So, all right. So thank you all for tuning in to Dee Dee's Cry, social and emotional learning with, of course, Toy, and then Miss Crystal and Jimmy as well. She done got my eyelashes all messed up. All right, we're going to get out of here because I can't see all of a sudden. Miss Crystal just knocked me out with that. Have a good day, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and reach out to a Black man and check in on them in the context of which we were speaking today in reference to Earl Simmons. DMX.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Keep that family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.